It's only a few hours now till Fire Emblem Engage releases worldwide. There's already reviews and spoilers popping up all across the internet. But before we delve into Engage, I wanted to talk about the most recent entry of the franchise. No, not Free Houses, Free Hopes. Because I barely hear any publicity about this game. I know it didn't sell nearly as well or was as popular as Free Houses, but I've recently played it and wanted to talk about it and hear what others thought of it. I do want to clarify that this was my first ever Fire Emblem game, so some of my criticisms or comments may just be a product of my unfamiliarity with this series. But when I first picked up the game, I didn't even think I would play it, to be honest. I'm not a huge fan of crude violence in video games, human violence at least. You won't see me playing some of the most popular games ever for that reason alone. And seeing gameplay of Free Hopes, just how systematic it was, cutting down any person in your way, I didn't think it would strike my fancy at all. But I was bored, so I gave it a go, and boy, did I play it a lot. The important tick for the game on the violence front was the enemies wouldn't splurt blood all across the screen. So I was fine to proceed and see what all this Fire Emblem stuff was about. As from an outsider's view, only really knowing Fire Emblem from Smash, I had been interested in what Fire Emblem's gameplay would actually be, and now I understand that majority of the entries are a turn-based, what they call chess strategy, which this game follows suit with the same strategic questions of how you divvy up your units to defeat an army. The difference in Free Hopes is there are no distinct turns, and it's a free-for-all 3D Warriors game, which is really cool in concept. It's expanding on the strategy element, but now you can have actual control of your characters instead of just sequent animations and predetermined move power. And it's cool in reality too. The main issue I had with it is it's just so repetitive. I've gotten to a stage of the game where the shine of the combat is well and truly rubbed off, and any opportunity I have to skip past the exterior battles on the war map to get to the next big part, I'm taking it. This did mean my units were significantly underleveled, which would lead to some very high octane intense battles with some frustrating game overs and most recently absolute carnage of my units. So when I say I'm very sick of the gameplay loop, you're not thinking that within the battles, because all of your mind processing power, I guess, needs to be focused on tackling everything the game throws at you, which the game throws a lot at you. And the main objectives of any given stage are usually a combination of seizing control of a stronghold or taking down a leader, protecting your own stronghold, and protecting your own leaders. The stressful thing was when they threw all of that at you at once, which was extremely overwhelming. As you can imagine, this had some pretty disastrous results. And I thought I was holding up okay. Like I said, there was gradually more and more optional battles that I would just ignore, and the discrepancy between my units' levels and the enemies would just grow larger and larger, and I started losing units. I think I lost Shamir, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce her name, but I don't think I was paying enough attention in those cases. That was just mistakes by me. It wasn't exactly valiant or sacrifices, but I wasn't too bothered after those two. They weren't my favorite characters. Shamir was helpful with scouting the other army, but then disaster struck. Our newly somewhat self-appointed king of the Federation, this man Claude. We were in battle, I think taking down Catherine of the Central Church. We had just signed a pact with the Adestrian Empire. I guess this is kind of spoilers, but do you really care? And we weren't in time. Well, we prioritized taking hold of the strongholds. And anyway, young Randolph, the red team person, died a terrible death. and I actually didn't think it was as bad as some of the others were making it out to be. Like, I agreed with Claude, we needed to ensure that we finished the mission, but this got his sister pretty riled up, and she plotted revenge on Claude. And when I say we weren't ready for this, we were not ready for this.
Nighttime! Daytime! Nighttime! Daytime!
I don't know if you saw it, but this battle took me 87 minutes. 87. My unit's completely decimated, except for this man Claude, who decided not to really help us. Just seated in the stronghold like a king. And Marianne, who was level 1 coming into this battle. Their forces were so strong for our teens team. Quite literally, their levels were still in the teens, or even less, and I think most of them are like teenagers. And yeah, we ran out of heals really quick, so quite a few just died in the general battle. Well, a lot of them died when we had to take down 2 of the leaders, I think. And because I was on so low health, if you didn't know, if you die, your main character dies, the whole stage has to reset, it's game over. And I really didn't want to have to go through the whole stage again after having to replay some other painstakingly long stages. So they all died trying to take down some of the leaders, except for Marianne. I guess I think I must have sent her last and just swiftly sent her back, because that wasn't about to work. And in my head, sending all the survivors was the only shot we had because I was on such low health. But then I realized that you slowly regain health at your own base, and I also realized that I must have defeated all of the pressing enemy troops attacking Claude, and the leader, the sister, was not moving at all. I also realized after the battle that you can simply pay to level up your units. So I could have spared like at least half of our army's lives. So that was the reason why it took so long. Because once I found out that you could regain health, I was like regaining 25 HP, which is like out of 6,000 or something. Like, it would regain every like 3 or 5 seconds. And I had to do this like 2 to 3 times because even after defeating the sister, Geralt appears, and that's a pretty tough battle too. Game can be quite the challenge. I know I've been lamenting about the units thing for quite a while, but I honestly like and found it refreshing how units can die forever. There's not many games, at least what Nintendo produce, that have this tangible risk quite like Fire Emblem does. It's interesting to see how the game deals with the deaths of the entire squad. The non-critical characters are just never seen again, not at all discussed. However, some of the leaders are still there, just hanging ghosts for Claude to reason with. I mentioned I was not at all familiar with the Fire Emblem franchise, so I had no idea, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, that Fire Emblem is pretty well just a never-ending war. There were so many armies rapidly rallying to attack you from all different fronts. Like, there's so much to defend, so many moving pieces, and not that much progress, honestly. Like, the narrator would show the war map before each new chapter, and the empires would own pretty much the same amount of territory. So for all my whining about the repetitive gameplay loop, with similarly designed stages, the same cavaliers, and just continuously fighting over and over, maybe that's the whole point here that I'm missing. This is just war, never-ending war, going against the same weapons, the same military. Each heartless moment and minute is hard to differentiate from the last. Just enduring, unrelenting war. And the emotion I attributed to most of these battles wasn't this great satisfaction, but relief that we had just skimmed past and won. That Claude hasn't died. I can't imagine war veterans get any source of satisfaction from war either. They would probably rather get relief, or maybe more likely deep sorrow, and would have many questions about their identity, mortality, and quite honestly, probably questioning their will to live. I assume it's only those who stand above the warfields that would get any source of satisfaction from their blood-stained victory. Anyway, getting back to the game, I do need a bit of help in the comments of what the setting has been in previous Fire Emblem games, because I'm pretty sure the free houses concept was introduced, well, in free houses. Like, is the games always set in Fodland? Fodland? Is there just always unrest? And maybe the free houses rose to power? Because I'm also curious, is this like one continuing timeline? Because it says it's set in 1182. So did the franchise start close to like 0 AD? Because that would be pretty cool, because a lot of other games have this very convoluted timeline that doesn't even work. And it would make sense with Engage if there was all one continual timeline and why characters fade out of the series. Sounds like Engage is not at all related to the free houses, so I'm not sure if they're still existing. I've also heard that Engage won't bring back all of the monastery, campsite stuff that free houses and Hopes had, which is something else I wanted to talk about, because I know Intelligent Systems brought in the Warriors team to produce that style of game, and from what I've experienced, it has a pretty scintillating story that's kept me engaged. But I still feel like the game is a gateway to the RPG experience, with all of the support conversations and the dynamics between the characters. I know Fire Emblem is like joked about for having all the same characters and archetypes, but with this being my first game, like all of the characters were honestly pretty distinct, had different priorities and personalities. The main topic around camp, of course, was war and the morals of it all, but I think this was a huge strength for the game. Like, it's weird to talk about the pacing in a game like this, but it's ideal pacing that you go conquer a territory, go back to camp, get everyone's reactions, tasks, and therefore build a stronger bond between your units and be stronger for it, until they all die, of course. And I just enjoyed that we were able to affect the characters, give advice to the units, and I think that more than covers the fact that we can't make any game altering decisions in the main story. Like, you get quite a few options throughout the game, but I don't think the alternative can actually play out. The side of the story does not at all feel like an tacked on feature. Like, it's honestly incredible the depth and the voice acting they've resourced. Like, it outshines a lot of other games in this facility. I'm not saying that I don't skip past a number of conversations and that all of it is incredibly insightful and shows their development. Like, Raphael remains just a humble muscle man. Lorenz, I didn't even really speak to Lorenz, but there isn't like this huge character arc, but the effort and depth they went to is just simply impressive. Well, that was some of my thoughts on Fire Emblem Three Hopes. I don't know if you could tell throughout the video, but I haven't actually completed the game yet. I might make a part 2 if I do, and I must admit, while I did have a mostly enjoyable time with the game, I don't feel compelled to dabble any further into Fire Emblem or the Warriors series, and kind of just don't want to. Like, I feel like I could lose a significant part of my life if I get too invested into Fire Emblem. Well, lose is a strong word, but I'm happy to leave it to the wonderful community of fans, and it sounds like that community is just getting stronger and stronger. I think it was a very smart release date to release Engage in January, as there's not many other AAA games that release in January. But yeah, I'm glad I got to see what it was all about. If you would like to hear me talk more about the game, I'm planning to release a private video with me rambling about some more of the personal experience I had with it. I didn't have enough courage to release it as a proper video, and not enough humility to scrap the thoughts and notes all together. So this is my half hour.